Did you say fuck America or Black America?
Fuck America.
Okay.
What did you? Wait a minute. Whoa. Who did that? Okay, someone decided to put Doom music over it, but you get it.
Wow. What'd she say? I have a monument?
Well, she was in the middle of having a seizure. It might have been she was speaking in tongues. She was having a full-on possessive episode.
I thought that Doom music was me for a second.
That was someone decided to put Doom music in there to ruin the video. But...
I was like, my VLC is not open. What's making that noise?
Yeah, I was about to say, did you just?
So I'll go ahead and be the first one to say I'm happy. I've never been happier to be wrong about this.
Yeah,
I thought he was toast.
You big dummy.
I just thought he was so done because of how cynical I was about, the court system. And let's be real, as people like to point out often, and you have to kind of give them credit for this when they talk about how unfair it is for so many other people. And they're right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. Just because they got this one right doesn't mean that, we should say, okay, I guess the court system does work. Let's be fair. The one thing we're not going to do is go a step further like everyone else and say it should have been unfair for Kyle so that it'd be more fair. I guess fairness to some people is for the court system to be equally unfair for everybody. If it's unfair for everybody, then it's fair.
If he was black, he'd be in jail right now. So therefore, we need to put Kyle in jail. We need to treat him just like black people.
Yeah.
We need to treat black people like Kyle.
Yeah.
Let's not raise the bar up for everyone. Let's lower it all down.
Yeah. The black Kyle Rittenhouse in my imagination got railroaded and went to prison. So this isn't right.
The black Kyle Rittenhouse, if you every other variable of the situation was the same, but you just changed the skin tone of him, the GOP would be trying to make him president right now. Let's be real. He'd be unstoppable.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they would.
Wow.
So, not guilty. Ran the table. Did you guys have an out-of-body experience?
I did, dude. It was like I stopped breathing while I was watching it, and I didn't look away. So I was proud of myself.
I watched too. High risk, high reward.
Yeah, it was like every single count, though. It's like he got past the first one. You're thinking, okay, if he got past the first one, he's going to get through all of them, all the way through all 5 counts. It's like, please don't say guilty. Please don't say guilty. Please don't say guilty. And then when he collapsed, I was like, man, that's like the most suspenseful moment of your life. Like it's like for him, for Kyle, his life came back to him in that moment. Because it's like, oh, do I go to jail for life, or do I get to go to college and be a normal kid and try to fade into obscurity now?
Do I take do my raccoon puppy eyes go to pound me in the ass prison for the rest of my life? Or
let's be honest, he's not going to want to go to any or most colleges after this.
Well, most colleges are online now, so the colleges you and I went to, they don't exist anymore.
I guess. Was this the original?
For the people who missed it, for the people who didn't see it.
Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the first count of the information. Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard.
Did you know there's a ransomware attack every 11 seconds?
Thank you so much for showing everybody how much of a cheap bastard I am.
We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information,
psych, it's guilty. Just once, I want some rogue jury foreman to do that. How much trouble could they be in?
We, the jury, find the.
What would they?
Yes.
Okay, so
they easily get fired. And
fired! It's the end of the case.
It'd be like a mistrial.
I lost my job.
Defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information,
I'm noticing his sister's reaction for the first time.
We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous?
And for one brief moment, his soul merged with O.J. Simpson and George Zimmerman, and all three of them have this shared experience that only they have had. let's hope Rittenhouse, is the first one who doesn't end up back in the news a year later and ends
Also,
up,
I'd like to take this moment that this is proof that he's just an ugly crier. Okay, he wasn't faking it. This is
he's
just how he
probably
cries.
not faking it this time. Oh, don't forget to cry that you just got off from prison for life.
Don't yawn, Kyle.
Does not agree with the verdict.
Okay, now I have to pretend to have emotions and hug this fellow white Klansman here. No, thank you so much.
Okay, folks, your job is done, and we started just about 3 weeks.
You have a tissue.
And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks.
That
You
poor
were
bastard.
a wonderful
Wow.
jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive.
Yeah, some water, that will help.
The forgotten six over here who had a very
What in a rush?
difficult job of.
It's not bad because at that point I would have stood up and stared like flipping everybody the bird, right?
Imagine getting
I'm a
a
free
contempt
man,
of
bitch.
court charge after getting not guilty.
He's
Right.
got to have like such an adrenaline rush at that moment because like watch his arms shaking. He can't hold the water bottle.
Sequestered as well. All of you, I couldn't have asked for.
Dude, the difference between life in prison and getting to resume your life at 18 from just one word, not.
Mhm.
You take that one word out and it's a completely different reaction to the whole thing. Wow.
Better jury to work with.
Just once I wish we could visit the parallel universe and see what it would have been like when he was guilty, and we could watch that one too. Just like have a side by side.
And
Of us crying and
pleasure.
Yeah.
saying it's not fair.
I think, without commenting on your verdict, the verdicts themselves, just in terms of your the attentiveness and the cooperation that you gave to us, justifies the confidence.
So
The founders.
let's
of our
be honest,
country
though.
placed.
A lot of the reactions we're seeing on the other side would have been completely mirrored in that mirror universe.
Yeah. Everyone's like, "Oh, justice was served. The right thing
Yeah.
happened. The corporate press got it right again."
Yeah,
Thank you.
Just do yourself a favor, everybody, and don't ever just drop the word justice. When you really think about it, it's the most useless word ever. Justice is just code for what I think ought to have happened.
Happened. Yeah.
That's really all that
Exactly.
means.
these days.
Good point.
Yeah. So a jury, a jury looked at all the evidence, deliberated for 4 days, and decided not guilty. And some people are still saying that justice wasn't served. It's like, what more do you want? Like, what else could we have done?
That's here. Let me share this.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all want to watch the judge. It's not as interesting, but I wonder if the judge would have had the same speech if they had ruled not guilty, though, because our theory was if they did guilty, they were going to just declare a mistrial anyway. But we don't know.
They would
that,
get into the mistrial motions because like the judge was really banking on this all getting ruled not guilty because there was a lot of issues with the trial. And unfortunately, that's the saddest part about this, right? Is the prosecutors not going to face any consequences for the dirty deeds they did, all the lies, the procedural errors, the constitutional violations. That all gets forgotten now because everyone's going to move on with their day. The judge is going to go to the next case. The prosecutor is already probably trying 5 other people. It's going to be interesting to see if the prosecutor even follows through with the Zeminskis.
Yeah, that'd be interesting too. Probably. I feel
He
like
needs a
after that, you
win.
want some wins. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, there's going to be no sanctions filed against Binger and the State Puff Marshmallow Man.
They should be
Kraus.
tarred. They should be tarred and feathered. And I don't think sorry, Nick, we're going to let you share your thing just real quick though. If y'all saw Mark, what was his name? Like the lead defense attorney. He did this interview after the verdict. Yeah, Richards, whatever. I forgot his name, but I watched an interview he did, and one of the things he said was that that kind of stuck with me was that Binger he made it about winning. And then he said that's why the case kind of devolved the way it did, is because like prosecutors are supposed to seek the truth, and he wasn't doing that. Instead, he was trying to win. And I think everybody basically agrees with that, right? It was clear that he was, basically when he said that Rosenbaum put his shirt over his face because he was worried about COVID, it's just, I know he doesn't believe that. There's no way he thinks that.
Because he had no mask the whole rest of the night.
Like
It's just
like over half the
preposterous.
videos are with him without anything on his face.
Yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
so there's no way he thought that. So he was obviously trying to
No.
win.
Yeah. No, I mean that's his job, right?
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't agree, Kraus was an assistant DA, the ADA.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he had to try to win as well. It's unfortunately sometimes you don't get to choose your cases, and even if you know you're going to lose.
Here we go. 1 second question. Do a brief overview of what issues the prosecution had. What do you mean? What issues? What they did wrong? Well,
So
let's
just
answer that first, and then we'll show this.
just for starters, they got the car dealership owners to perjure themselves on stand, and they the prosecutor willfully had them go up there knowing that they were going to lie, that they didn't ask Kyle to be there when they, you have like 5 different witnesses who said they did. They've got the text, they've got the receipts. There was promise of money being paid. And it's because they were trying to protect themselves for their other insurance claims that said if you hired if you hired private security that night, your claims are invalid.
Yeah. So real quick, just what the new, for people who don't know what we're talking about, like the news said that, like the news' kind of narrative is that Rittenhouse went over there because he wanted, just for the purpose of being there with a gun for the opportunity to shoot protesters. But the actual reason was that some friends that he had worked for these car lots, and the people who owned those lots lost a ton of cars because they got burned up in protests. Mm-hmm. So they called them up saying, because they're like, okay, these guys are big gun nuts. Bring your guns over here and protect the car lot. And they said at one point, they said they were going to pay him some money. And so the prosecution put these guys on the stand, trying to use them to tell the jury that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. But they had all the evidence that it did. So they, and so the defense gets up there. And so over the course of the trial, they basically prove that they asked them to be there and promised to pay him money.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, with that one, I'd even give the prosecution possible benefit of the doubt there, because it could easily be that the car source owners wanted to get up on stand and lie under oath just so they could, avoid insurance issues.
Well, I don't think we should focus on this part too much, because it wasn't really like the biggest issue. The two biggest issues.
Grosskreutz was the biggest one.
No, the two big like mistrial issues. One was the constitutional violation of Kyle's Fifth Amendment right. That was the one that should have been a flat out mistrial.
Yeah.
And the second one was not delivering the evidence to the defense team. The video, the 11 megabyte video they had, that was an HD resolution, a full 1920 by whatever video, and they delivered something that was a 16th of the resolution to the defense, where you couldn't even tell you couldn't even see what was going on when the prosecution is trying to say Kyle pointed his gun at the Zeminskis or at Rosenbaum or whoever. Like, you couldn't make any sense of it because the resolution was not clear. And so it was either intentional mishandling of the evidence or negligent mishandling of the evidence. And unfortunately, the prosecution gets to just play dumb and doesn't get to suffer any consequences. I personally lean towards they were not giving them the proper evidence, because they had to craft this story of provocation. And without that grainy video they gave the defense, they wouldn't hold up, because you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Specifically on that first point, when they were calling into question in front of the jury why he didn't come forward with a testimony beforehand.
This is he didn't talk to the cop
violation.
And we covered this a lot in the last episode, so let's not stick on it too long. But long story short, he didn't talk to the police after the incident, and he basically never sat down and talked to anybody and gave a full statement until the trial. That was the first time he actually gave a public for the record statement. This is what happened.
Say anything.
And they decided to, one of the first questions they asked Rittenhouse when he was on the stand was, they asked it in kind of a sneaky way, where they were just asking him, so what you're saying is the first time we're actually hearing the story is now during the trial, trying to imply that he was crafting his story to fit what came out over the course of the trial to make himself look more credible. But it is a violation of your right to remain silent if you use them staying silent as evidence on the stand. And that was probably the most
And
like
if
mistrial
you've,
grounds thing that happened on the
if
Judge
trial.
you've seen
Yes.
headlines of the judge being biased and yelling at the prosecution, the bias part's bullshit. As soon as Binger, the prosecutor, brought this up and tried to use his silence against him, the judge said, "Jury, please leave the courtroom." And as soon as they got out, he started screaming at Binger
Just
because
berating him, yeah.
the law of the land for the past half century is you have the right to remain silent. And he says, I don't know if you've crossed the line. You might have already, but this is grounds for a mistrial.
I
And
think
he pretty much told Binger, if this happens again, the trial's over.
yeah, don't do it again. But to Nick's point, in the end, there wasn't a mistrial, so he got away with it. You can say go judge all you want, but the truth is Binger probably knew he'd get away with it, so he just did it, and the jury heard it. And telling the jury to disregard testimony is one of the silliest things we do.
And that's a very important point, because this prosecutor, Krause, Binger, even the defense lawyers have worked with this judge dozens, if not hundreds of times before. So they know exactly how to push the judge to the limit and then pull back. So they're very skilled in that. And if you're really for criminal justice reform, if you think like the America's justice system's fucked up and this would have happened to like a black kid would have got railroaded if he was on trial, well, your real issue shouldn't be with Kyle getting off. It should be with the prosecutors and that the amount of power the state has against you. Like we have this fantasy that we're built on this presumption of innocence, but in reality, that's like the toothpick they hand you as a sword when you walk into these cases. And then saying, here you go, defend yourself. We're going to presume you're innocent. But this prosecutor here has the unlimited resources of the state, is allowed to lie. There's no repercussions for him lying. He's allowed to pull games like trying to release your safe house information to the press so you get harassed. He can do all kinds of things like getting like he can. I don't know if it's the press or the prosecutor pulling the GoFundMe funds, trying to stop Kyle from getting a war chest to fund his defense campaign. But if Kyle was a poor kid with no resources, if he didn't have all the private donations to power his defense, he'd absolutely be in jail right now.
Screwed, yeah.
Because this prosecutor, he's a weasel. He's skillful. He's crafty. He knows exactly how to win, what to do. He knows how this judge works. And if Kyle didn't have all the millions of dollars of resources, not just the $2 million cash he needed for bond, but the millions additional to actually fund his defense, he'd be hosed. There's no way he would have all the support he would need to debunk all these claims and to counteract the corporate press. So if you really care about justice reform and you really want to see more fair verdicts for whether it's minorities or future Kyle Rittenhouses, you really want to see prosecution reform. Because what happened here was a miscarriage of justice from the state. So
think about what I said earlier about Greutzkreutz. I know the prosecution putting him on the stand and allowing him to tell the story that he did. I know that wasn't illegal. I know it wasn't like mistrial grounds, but so what a prosecutor is supposed to do, or what we think they're supposed to do, like in our minds, this is what they do. They would have sat down with Gage Greutzkreutz, gotten his statement, and said, this guy's full of shit. Like, he obviously, the story he's telling is not true. We're going to dismiss that charge. That's what's supposed to happen, is that the prosecution looks at this. Like, the prosecution's never supposed to get embarrassed this bad during a trial by putting up somebody and allowing them to tell this complete fantasy in front of everybody.
Yes.
Like, the prosecution at that point was supposed to drop the charges, but he put him on the stand anyway, and he let him tell his story because he wanted to win. It wasn't about doing the right thing and dropping the charges. It was, I'm going to tell this story to the jury, and who knows, if they have a shitty defense lawyer or it just resonates with the jury, I win. And it doesn't really matter what really happened. So yeah, if Rittenhouse didn't have lawyers who were good enough to exploit that, he would have probably gotten burned.
Yeah, no, like you said, the fact that he's able to go up there and craft the story, if there was no video evidence completely counteracting it, then it's just Kyle's word versus Gage's. And then it's like, you really don't know which way it's going to go, but you do know that you have this prosecutor who's very skillful and knows how to work the judge and the jury to make you believe his narrative.
All right, let's check this thing out. What's this?
So this is a ABC News reaction. Partway through, this is getting into the victims' families' reactions. This is a reaction from the other side for it.
No
Can't hear it.
sound.
Yeah, remember to check the box.
Are you
The
using
magic box.
Google Chrome?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure to check the audio box and do it as share Chrome tab.
Oh, Chrome tab.
It's a good thing this is the last episode with the guest. He's really slowing us down here.
Unless you guys want to do another trial. You've got the Theranos trial and you've got the Aubrey trial, right?
Yeah, I think
Aubrey,
the Maxwell. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell
so.
isn't being televised, so we can do
Yeah.
that one. But it will not be entire episode dedicated to it. All right, let's hear it.
I don't think the powers that be want that one televised.
If she just didn't have hoop earrings and that nose ring, she'd have looked pretty good.
We know
Today's verdict was a crushing blow.
if one person's life or two persons' lives don't matter, then none of our lives matter. We know that this is.
Well, what about Kyle's life?
I think the question that most of us are feeling right now is, what can we do next?
No justice!
No peace!
I just want to pause it there.
That'll answer our question. What do we do now? Well, what do we always do in situations like this? Chant.
Right. Let's promote rioting.
Yeah.
You know what I thought
A
was
polarizing case of
pretty
snapshot of
timely,
deep political and cultural
while the
division.
jury was in deliberations, a news article came out about some guy, I think it was in California, who beat another man to death by hitting him in the head with a skateboard.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah, like the idea that, like, just take your beating. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, every time you
that's
get into
what
a
Chris
fist
Cuomo
fight,
said.
there's a non-zero chance of dying.
Chris Cuomo, an A-list CNN, mainstream news anchor, actually said on live TV that Kyle Rittenhouse showed bad judgment shooting Rosenbaum with his gun, and he should have fought him instead.
Yeah, this 17-year-old kid versus a 35-year-old man.
I will gladly let Cuomo fight me and see how that turns out. Of course, I don't like punching plastic.
It shouldn't be pick on someone your own age. It should be pick on someone your own size. It should be pick on someone your own age. Because, like, a 17-year-old kid, versus a 35-year-old man, I feel like the 35-year-old man is going to have an advantage.
There's a lot of couch warriors out there.
Let me make sure.
Oh, that one.
This one's great because I think this is just the perfect, she exemplifies just everything that she is the narrative. Like,
the trial.
If they could take the narrative and mold it into a person, this is the speech that it would make.
I have my own show. I have a responsibility to say things that people need to know that aren't being said. It's a cool opportunity that I don't take lightly.
She's so unique. What she's saying is so unique. No one's saying this.
That no one wants to say on TV,
no
but
one.
I will. Now, just a few minutes before we started taping the show, Kyle Rittenhouse, the man
can't get over her Colonel Sanders bow tie.
Black Lives Matter protest, was declared not guilty on all charges.
Can't unsee it.
So I can't believe I have to say this, but
she's a better fake crier than Kyle.
it's not okay for a man.
Probably. I think it was real.
Grab a rifle.
Does that imply it's okay for a woman?
Across state lines.
Well, it's just
state lines.
Yeah, that's a meme. God, if I hear that one more time, every time I hear someone say state lines, I want to stab my throat with a letter opener.
I had to.
What are you going to say?
Go ahead.
All right, let's just finish this.
System to be blatantly and obviously stacked against people of color. It's not okay for there to be an entirely different set of rules for white people. But I don't care about Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't care about that.
Sure? You almost
Make a
cried.
special segment.
I don't care about how up that jury must be. White people have been getting away with murder since time began. I don't care about
since
that.
time began, when the Big Bang, the Big Bang was probably started by a white person shooting it, right?
Well, she's not wrong. White people invented murder, right? Cain killing Abel.
Yeah.
And
you got that right?
I believe I have to say this.
That's a good point.
You matter. You matter. Every time one of these verdicts come out, It's easy to feel like you don't, but I'm here to tell you that you do. You matter. You matter so much that the second you start to get a sense that you do, a man will grab a gun he shouldn't have in the first place and travel all the way to another state just to quiet you. That's the power you have.
That's the narrative.
The people who
okay. So when I first saw this,
the people who's just real quick, the people who stoke racial like strife and fighting between people, they're the worst people on the planet. Go ahead.
I actually was going to say, if she has evidence to the last half of what she was saying, except for that tail end thing, I'm fine with it. If she wants to fight racial injustice and wants to point that out in the system, perfect. Let's go after it.
Yeah, there should be a same set of rules for white and black people. And I would
fact that I
go
think
ahead,
that was unscripted, and I think she's repeating narrative. I think she truly believes what she's saying. I don't think that was fake crying. I saw real vulnerability there, and I think she's just been either brainwashed or misinformed.
Yeah, I think she's a true believer. I think it's a combination, like, but that she's also taking her cues from, the people who are actually okay. Whenever you say like cross state lines, do you think she personally really cares that someone crossed state lines? These people never cared about borders before in their lives. The reason they keep saying cross state lines, like every time somebody is trying to complain about the verdict and talk about Rittenhouse, one of the things that they'll list on that list of here's why Kyle Rittenhouse is the devil is he crossed state lines with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, that actual charge was dropped. He never actually crossed state lines with a gun.
Hold on.
Aside from the fact that phrase
Misinformation.
being not true,
that was never a charge, is what you meant to say.
Well, no, but the charge that he even illegally had a gun was dropped.
Yes.
So he never crossed state lines with a gun.
The gun never left Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Kenosha.
Yeah. It stayed at Dominic Black's house, and he wasn't going to take possession of it until he was 18. But that day, he went over to Dominic Black's house. Dominic Black had it on the counter and said, "Hey, we're going to go protect the place. You're going to need this." So, like, and the crossing state lines is relevant because Anahuac, where he's from, is a suburb of Kenosha. But even that point, he didn't grab his gun from his house in Anahuac, drive 15 minutes to Kenosha, and go start shooting people. He was in Kenosha that day, cleaning up graffiti, picking up the pieces of the town, and then got the call from the car dealership brothers saying, "Hey, we want some people to protect the place tonight." So him and Dominic Black are like, "All right, let's get our stuff and go."
The point is, I don't believe anybody who complain about the fact that he crossed state lines, they don't actually inside care that happened. It makes it sound worse. They're looking for anything they can say to fling mud on Kyle Rittenhouse. And because they've been trained these phrases, save our democracy. Anytime someone says our democracy, same thing. It's the same phenomenon as just these phrases that they all share with each other because they believe it makes their argument more effective.
I instantly know what team you're on when you say cross state lines. It's a signaling message.
So maybe she's a true believer. Maybe she's a true believer, but she's not making any of this shit up. She said that no one says this on TV. Everyone is saying this.
Well, that's the thing. I think yes, that is a blatant lie. Everyone's saying it.
Everyone is saying it.
Maybe. I mean, and she just heard it. Maybe if it was right before they started recording, sure. But everyone's going to be saying it. And you know what? I see it as a sign of eating from the same tree, because it's the parrot. They parrot these phrases. It's a catchy thing. Crossing state lines, which for those who don't know, you can cross state lines with a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
If you can drive through a state that your weapon is illegal in, if you have it stored properly, you can fly with a weapon. You can check it as check baggage through the TSA and have it checked, and then you get it checked back. You can, if you're a concealed carry permit or any carry permit, you can check your gun at the TSA, and then when you get where you're going, as long as you can legally carry it with a permit or if it's constitutional,
They'll
you
hand
can
it to
then
you.
arm yourself in the bathroom in the airport and carry it out the door.
Mm-hmm.
That is perfectly legal as long as you're not doing it in a secure area.
This happens every day to people standing right next to you at the airport. You never know.
Yeah. Well, do you think people who hunt in other states never fly?
Yeah.
They don't always drive. They don't buy a gun in that state and just throw it away.
The point is they have a mission, which is make Kyle look like the devil. And so they have a list of things that they're going to say. And that's one of them. I think we lost Nick. I want to watch this one.
Freeze this time.
Here's the next one.
Milwaukee, and just here.
So this is after, by the way. This is after the trial was over. It's one of the first times. So after the 2020 election, or I'm sorry, after the 2016 election, and then after this verdict, were the only times I felt compelled to watch cable news just because I wanted to see how bad they were gonna like hurt.
Are they dressed up as Superman?
Yeah,
yes,
so
they
this
are.
was one of the people who was
she
talking.
was here to support a conviction.
It's amazing.
Jill, how are you feeling, and what are you thinking right now?
You know, I heard the verdict on the way down. We were about 15 minutes out, and I don't even have the right word for it. The immediate feeling I had was doom. I think that this is one of the darkest days in American history. This isn't just about Kenosha.
Yeah,
or
forget
Wisconsin.
the Civil War or
We
like
just
the
legalized
genocide of the Native Americans.
Vigilantism is sport killing.
Enslavement of black people.
As a
Trail of
medic,
Tears.
you know, he's not a medic. You know, he had a Fisher Price medic kit. He didn't come down here for that. He specifically
Fisher Price. I want one of those.
And that's what he did. And
so when did he say he was coming down
What's
here?
your hat say?
Video of that all over. And his
Made you look. Yeah, that's actually. I like that.
I actually like that too. Yeah.
And
He said he wished he had his AR-15.
Yep, exactly. So he's a sport killer, and a child sport killer. What age now are we going to say vigilantism is okay? Because they just made it okay, and he was.
No, that's the height of American capitalism.
What age are we going to do? So we better start making vigilante laws then. When you can be a card carrying.
These are the people who would be against Batman, by the way.
It's
card carrying vigilantes
for this country. The hate that the
there are vigilante laws, but none of them applied because Kyle wasn't a vigilante that night.
Oh yeah, because the former administration is responsible for all the hate.
A lot of things about Kyle were mischaracterized, and that they believe he did act in self-defense, and this was politicized by both sides. I mean, Joe Biden, I guess, tweeted out he was a white supremacist. The attorneys said in court they didn't find anything on his phone to support that, anything like that.
The signals in a bar with his KKK friends. So yeah,
KKK.
He's held up his
wrong organization.
Mother is
she meant the Proud Boys, which aren't white supremacists either. So
their leader for the longest time was mixed race of not white and not white.
So the media actually got her to believe the Proud Boys were KKK members, and so she just said that Kyle Rittenhouse was hanging out with the KKK.
Hold on, they could be KKK, but your membership's down really low. They're just starting to let more people in of different races. You know,
they've had reform.
Keep those dues up.
The KKK is reformed. They're very progressive now.
Held up as a hero. They had a big.
You just have to hate Jews, and you're in.
To her in Waukesha, Wisconsin, she's a hero for allowing her son to do this. What have we become? What have we become? You know, I just keep thinking of that.
I disagree with that too.
This is us now.
Did you hear her? She just says this reminds me of the show. This is us. Yeah, that's the problem. She watches too much TV.
What is This Is Us?
I don't care. She said it reminds me of a show. Yeah, that's exactly how these people think. They watch too much TV.
And
this is just like Handmaid's Tale.
I have 8 grandchildren.
Right. We live in Handmaid's Tale.
A great grandchild on the way, and I'm scared to death for their future. I'm scared to death for my future. I mean,
I believe that.
Congratulations, the media is making
intolerant to all injustice. I'm now afraid to come out to this. So, with this verdict, my right to the First Amendment and free speech is gone. They're already making laws, making protesters rioters. I'm not
Oh
a
my
writer.
gosh.
I've never rioted. But
So
now
she
I am
she
viewed
wisely
as a
left
writer,
the Rittenhouse
and they are viewed
topic
as coming
because she
in to
probably
keep,
ran out of things to say about
peace
it.
and order. What? There's no
Did I
such
mention
thing as
white?
law and order
Yeah.
in this country anymore. It's lawless and total disorder. And I am horrified
I love this part.
that they have made these three men to be exposing their criminal records. They're this, that, the next thing. You know what? I don't care what they
Which, by the way, they didn't do in the trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
didn't
what
do in the
she's saying
trial.
they didn't do.
did.
If you had told the jury
If
Rosenbaum had anally molested 5-year-olds, they probably would have the trial would have been over.
Yeah.
So yeah, the jury acquitted Rittenhouse, and they weren't even told about the charges that all three of these people combined to have had, which is a pretty big rap sheet. I mean,
Or at
was
least
it
it wasn't
Huber?
supposed to be a factor.
Huber, I think, had like 3 charges of like three violent crimes. So Huber is a violent criminal.
Violent crimes against his own family.
Yeah, and then so that middle guy Rosenbaum, he was a child molester who was convicted like 3 times and just got out of prison for doing that. And then Gage was actually the squeaky cleanest. He had like a THC charge or something.
No, he did have a felony charge, and because he posted his CCW on Reddit, which doesn't expire until like 2023. But the reason it was not valid at the time is because he has a felony charge.
What was his felony charge?
Oh,
for?
I didn't know that. I thought it was expired.
Or he had some kind of charge that made it invalid. He couldn't possess a handgun.
Well, bottom line, he was the only one
wait.
who wasn't a violent criminal.
Once you're charged with that, they're supposed to acquire your card.
I mean, I've got every old passport and driver's license I've ever had. You're supposed to destroy those too. Like, what you're supposed to do and what happens are 2 different things.
I mean, that's different than your current card, right? So if you lose your license, they're supposed to take your current license. Doesn't matter if you have an old license because it's expired.
Here, let me look up what his
on
charge
August
was.
25th, these men were superheroes. That could have easily been. That could have
Oh,
been.
which is the one that touched the 4 boys.
Hear that guy that come in? Listen.
Their criminal records. They're this, that, the next thing. You know what? I don't care what they did before August 25th. On August 25th, these men were superheroes. That could have easily been. That.
So which one of these molested 4 boys?
Could have easily been a
The
mass
answer was the middle
killing.
one.
Another American mass killing.
It's the only mass shooter in history who was running from all of his victims as they chased after him.
So, all right. Gage seemed squeaky clean during the trial because his felony burglary conviction was expunged before the trial. He also had a felony DWI charge from October 6th, 2020 that was mysteriously dropped 3 days before the trial. So that's why he didn't have a valid CCW.
Are you going over all their charges or just his?
Just his.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was because I knew Huber had the attacks against his family, and Rosenbaum was a pedophile. So I knew those 2. But Gage, comparatively, like he was the cleanest of the 3.
But I mean, even if we're gonna flip this around, it doesn't matter what happened prior.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. So
even if you're all of this, you have the right to defend yourself.
theoretically, the jury didn't know any of that, and that's how it should be.
That's my point, is that they acquitted him. That they acquitted him, even though they weren't actually told about this stuff. So just imagine if they were. I mean,
he had one juror who watches Fox News. They knew everything.
I mean, let's be honest.
He probably sat there. He's like, "Listen, guys, y'all don't know." But
I'd still be surprised if they didn't know. Honestly, I mean, these are Kenosha residents.
That's why I thought it was a hung jury, because you had one guy who knew about their criminal past, and then one guy who knew everything CNN told them. They would never come to an agreement. So I was actually really shocked on Friday when they announced a verdict was coming in. I was like, "How?"
I was expecting to go into the next week too.
But imagine like it's your turn at the jury table. Like you haven't been allowed to talk about this case with anybody for like 3 weeks. It's your turn. Is your opening words going to be like, "Hey guys, I was watching Fox News before the trial, and these guys are criminals."
Yeah, I was watching CNN last night.
That's a quick way to get ejected,
right?
I am curious to see which jurors come out and tell what happened, because it's always interesting. Because the jurors isn't like they go around the table and everyone says what they think. There's usually like a couple ringleaders, the alpha types, who kind of take charge in positions. And they're the ones who actually make the decisions for the entire group. So it's going to be interesting to learn why it took 4 days. What was the thought process? Where were people hung up? I think it might have actually hurt Kyle if like they had kept the curfew charge in there. If the jury had like one misdemeanor they could nail him with, then they would have came back as not guilty on the felonies, guilty on the curfew charge. That way they could feel good that they did something, because for some reason they just felt he shouldn't have been there.
Well, I think it all was the judge even admitted that his instructions were not as clear as they could have been, and he would rewrite them. I think that's what it boils down to.
And that's why I'm eager to hear their stories, because I want to know.
Yeah, it would have driven me crazy.
I don't think we will. It's gonna be black silhouette.
Someone's gonna talk. Are you kidding me? Tucker is
voiceover.
Somebody is going to be dying to tell people. Someone's going to be dying to tell people. I wouldn't, but
I got to secure that bag. That information doesn't come free.
There is at least one juror who wants to be famous in that room.
I don't think any of them want to be famous right now.
I think
actually,
yes,
let's talk about that. The protests last night were all very mild.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that there really wasn't any rioting. Yeah, dude,
I was disappointed nobody wrecked shit.
I wanted some riots, man. I love that shit. I mean, well, I'm not there.
Well, the obvious answer is there's no feds, there's no chaos actors, there's no mysterious pallets of bricks, there's nobody instigating the riots.
And there's nobody, and the current president is the one that was in contact with the governor for the National Guard, and the mayor. Not the previous president.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it could be just not as many people cared about this as we thought. It could just be that people cared about George Floyd way more than they cared about Rittenhouse. Plus, when George Floyd happened, there was a lot of people who didn't have jobs because of the lockdown, and more people are working now than when that happened. So,
well, yeah, lockdown was kind of pressure cooked everyone, right? Everyone was,
that made it turned the whole country into a powder keg. And then
I also think because it's not an election year, you don't have the feds, you don't have the chaos actors, you don't have the people who are there to escalate things. So it never gets beyond fuck the police and no justice, no peace.
Because they were in the middle of Trump is the president and we need to make things as bad as possible while he's the president. So the media was like actively trying to create some riots. But I think with this one, they probably just wanted to move on to something else because they're so embarrassed. I mean, the Kyle getting not guilty, the news was probably like we could stoke this, but maybe it'd be better if we just
if they want to stoke racial tensions, they should just ditch this trial and focus on the Aubrey case, which admittedly I know nothing about.
Yeah.
The very little I've seen, it looks pretty damning.
Yeah, dude, two rednecks
Aubrey,
in the truck.
What was he thinking about jogging? I'm kidding.
So the media decides to make Rittenhouse this super mega race case about a white supremacist when it was really a white guy who shot 3 other white guys. Meanwhile, there's this trial going on at the same time about 2 rednecks who chase down a black guy in a truck and shoot him with a shotgun.
Well, the difference is the current president of the United States didn't call whoever shot Aubrey a white supremacist in his campaign ad.
That's right.
Well, I think there's more to it than that. I think the AR-15 has a lot to do with
Aubrey
it.
A white supremacist because he's the black guy who got shot. It's the other guy.
Well, no, the one who shot Aubrey.
I don't even know their names.
Okay, so what are the differences that make that one a sleeper and this one a hit? I think number one, the AR-15, the fact that the gun was an AR-15, which is something that they're trying to get rid of.
Campaign messaging, AR-15, white kid.
Yeah, white kid. It also sounded really bad. Shot 3 people sounds really bad.
I mean, no, honestly, the Aubrey one, they could be displayed easily by the media as a lynching mob.
Here's another one.
Something that was interesting. Jump Kick Man, when his identity came out, is actually black. So the one person Kyle did not kill that night was a black guy.
Was the black guy, but he took a shot at him. He was still charged.
2 shots at him.
Though. Yeah. Well, he knew he was black, so they were just warning him. It's like, hey man, there's a trial coming. This is all
like,
planned.
Whoa, I'm not going to shoot a black dude. That's too much heat for me, man. But another thing that was probably big was that what did Kyle do that the other 2 guys that shot that black guy Aubrey, that they weren't doing? They weren't defending themselves from a leftist mob.
They were doing like a citizen's arrest. So they brought in they brought they made the situation happen, and that's why I don't think they're going to have they're going to have a really hard time claiming self-defense, because it was their decision to drive up on Aubrey.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, why didn't the media blow up the Aubrey case that they definitely could have if they wanted to, make it a giant like American obsession if they wanted to. It's just all the elements are there for them to do it, but they didn't do it. And I think the big reason they wanted to do Rittenhouse instead was that he made the sin of defending himself against their protesters, their mob. Like, he was supposed to bow down to them and let them do whatever they wanted to him, but he fought back, and that's a problem because they need these people to submit. And they're right. Like, when the media says this is a problem because now more people are going to want to take their guns to these protests, they're probably right.
Well, also, let's be honest. It's backwoods rednecks versus alt-right militia. It's a little more escalated when it's a right-wing militia.
Yeah, because Kyle, it's very easy to paint Kyle as everything they hated: a proud boy, a militia. He has an AR-15. He has he wanted to be a police officer in some regards.
He's white. He's
so he's pro-police. He seems like he's pro-militia.
He's a young kid,
pro-right-wing,
who's privileged, a young privileged kid, just like Sandman, just like Nicholas Sandman.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was he was a much better target than just some rednecks.
I don't know, man.
I don't even know what state that is.
I think if they wanted to, they could have made the Aubrey case the obsession, and everyone would have forgotten about Rittenhouse, because no one's talking about the Aubrey case because they weren't talking about it.
But yeah, I mean, Rittenhouse has completely overshadowed the Aubrey case. It's completely overshadowed the Theranos case, which is actually really interesting.
And Ghislaine Maxwell. Dude, there's 4 major trials going on right now.
And they decided to pick the biggest L for them.
Rittenhouse. Yeah. When they could have picked this other slam dunk. Nobody's on these guys' side. There's no way they're walking from this.
Well,
I think the details are basically, I think he was spotted on like a construction site or something, and they believed he was stealing from it, something like that. And so
Aubrey?
they drove up in a truck when he was jogging. They drove up to him, got out of the truck. He probably was trying to jump him because the guy had a gun, and he was like, this is my chance to stay alive. And then he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, I already saw some of the testimony when he was on the stand. And one of the things they asked him was, okay, so you're claiming this was self-defense. He tried to get your gun, but I'm reading your statement to police where you said, I think he might've been going to my gun. Like, so they already caught him, basically not being sure. And we've already seen cases like that where they're always more definitive on the stand because the lawyer tells them, you need to say, I'm 100% positive he was going to my gun. If you're wishy-washy about it in the beginning, you're done.
And here's some legal advice from someone who's not a lawyer: never talk to the cops.
Ever.
Yeah. So there's 3 takeaways from the Rittenhouse case I think people should do. One is good news, is that even a very politicized trial can still see, I mean, I'm going to use the word justice. I can still see what should be applied in the law, even though it's highly politicized. There's still hope. Now, I do agree that, there are issues we have with our justice system, but I'm not going to go into that. 2, don't be stupid. Like, honestly, he had every right to be there, but I think he shouldn't have been there. I would not have been proud of my kid for going there.
I think Kyle would agree with you now.
Yeah, no, I hope he does. I hope he doesn't get emboldened by all the people saying attaboy, because he just went through some shit. The kid's going to need some therapy. He's clearly suffering from PTSD. I hope he gets some before he goes to the range again, even.
Richard mentioned, the jury wasn't in the room, that Kyle is going through treatment of PTSD. Yeah. So and Richard's statements to the press, he has said Kyle, in hindsight, which is better than 2020, wished he wasn't there that night.
Kyle he's like a stripper. I'm really glad they're there, but I would not want my daughter doing it.
Nick, I think one of us needs to make this meme a reality.
That's great.
Yeah, I think the police, and this is where conservative Nick isn't gonna agree, but I think the police just they weren't doing their job because either they weren't capable or they just flat out cared about their own safety too much to do it. So if you're going to put the town in that situation where the police are not protecting you, you got to actually applaud people who are going to show up and do it themselves.
Well, that's why the curfew charge got dropped, right? Like, yes, there was a curfew in effect, but it wasn't being enforced. So in previous rulings, the curfew was ruled moot or unlawful because it wasn't a real curfew. That's why that
Well, it was also
misdemeanor.
unconstitutional. I think it was ruled unconstitutional.
Okay, yeah.
So, but no, I agree the police weren't doing their job properly. I don't agree with why. I think their arms were tied.
Okay, so they failed. They can't do it. They can't do their job.
Did.
Well, they didn't
but
because.
But if I were talking to anyone, any of you, I'd say, fuck brick and mortar. Can I say that on the show?
What does that mean?
Fuck businesses.
It's too late. You've said it 5 times now.
Let's work. I mean, if it was your house, if it was another friend's house, if it was a neighborhood, different story. If it's some places of residence, different story. If you're protecting someone's life, yes. A business, I wouldn't go there. Let it burn. And this is a clear.
I mean, that's
clear.
easy to
Like
say,
well, it's easy to say in hindsight too. But I said it before. Like now, these assholes who asked for his help tried to leave him hang up for dry. They said they threw him under the bus. They said, "No, we didn't. I don't know what you're talking about." Fuck those guys.
Yeah, if the cops were doing their job, if they weren't politically hamstringed that night because it's an election year and COVID hysteria, and 2, his lawyer even said this: if he never got separated from his friend, what was the
Dominic Black or the
big guy, Gravy Seal.
Gravy Seal, that's what it was.
If he was never separated from him, he would have been like nobody would have charged him. The fact that Kyle got separated and alone, he was an easy target. Yeah. So if he had a buddy, he wouldn't have gotten charged. Rosenbaum probably wouldn't have charged him.
I feel really bad for the 2 like Middle Eastern guys who own the car lots because I think what they did to me, it's such an American, like, okay, the police aren't protecting my business, so I'm just going to get my own security force. I'm just going to do it myself, arm my friends or whatever, and do it. Like, I have no problem with people doing that. I'll just say it. Like, I unfortunately, they're in a lot of legal shit now because the government has a monopoly on defense, and he went outside the government to get his own defense, and that's not okay. Like, you can't have anyone other than the government defending you.
There are private organizations that bring armed defense.
They have to have the blessing of the government to do it.
No, they just have to have a lot of insurance that they pay out the ass for.
Well,
no, they have to be
keep in mind, insurance companies have a lot of clauses. Like, they don't cover civil unrest damage from like riots and stuff. They won't cover a meteor hitting your house. They won't cover like if China launched some new arsenal and tested and it hit your house. They wouldn't cover that. So there's just like those guys probably weren't entitled to an insurance claim. But I think the reason they were perjuring themselves is because they did manage to weasel one out, and everything coming out in the trial would make their claim invalid. So that's why they were distancing themselves.
Because they're not allowed to have armed guards. That's another risk factor to their insurance.
And normally when you hire security, the security has their own insurance for that kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I can't say. I mean, I can say that if he was my son, I would try and talk him out of it.
No, exactly.
But so in that regard, he made a mistake, and he, you're not supposed to say that when you're charged. But
Kyle's mom and dad are separated. That's why his dad's in Kenosha and his mom's in Antioch. So in reality, the real problem here is divorce and people getting married to people they don't want to be with. If Kyle's dad was there, none of this would have happened.
The problem is we are a godless nation.
It's single mothers.
Hey guys, I want to watch this one.
Okay, I've got about 5 more minutes before I have to cut it off.
Okay.
So I'll let you guys keep going, but let's knock out some videos.
Further. Well, looks like Wisconsin's gonna fucking burn tonight. All 5 charges. All 5 fucking charges. Not guilty. Unfucking real. If you don't know what white privilege looks like, look no goddamn further. Look no fucking further.
No further than this TikTok.
Murder! And just a walk scot-free. Unfucking believable.
It's very believable, actually, if you watch the trial.
Yes, if you actually know what the fuck you're talking about. Sorry.
In reality, is if it was her in that courtroom and she was the defendant, she wouldn't have these opinions. She's like, I want to save my ass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the other thing people should learn is you don't talk to police. As Nick Prime mentioned, if you are ever in a situation where you have to defend your life with a firearm or period, and use lethal force, you ask for a lawyer because you're going to be in shock. Any normal human being will be in shock after going through something like that. And a lawyer will help you sort things out.
If you
I'll go
take
a
a
step further.
let me say, if you take a CCW class, they're usually taught by people who are shilling self-defense insurance. They just say, don't talk to the police, but if you do say anything, say I was in fear for my life, I had to. Like, that's all you need to say, and then say, I'd love to cooperate, but I need a lawyer. Like, that's it.
Yeah, I don't talk to the police unless I have an attorney present. And I would go a step further and just, if they ever ask to interview you, period, even if you don't think they suspect that you committed a crime, you got to remember, like, the police, a lot of times, if you're a suspect in a crime, the police are going to take advantage of the fact that you don't know that. And so a lot of people wish they had gotten a lawyer. They just think, oh, well, they don't expect that I'm a criminal, so I'll just go ahead and talk to them. Even then, just if a police officer ever asks you to agree to be interviewed, say it's my policy that I don't ever talk to the police unless I have an attorney present. Done.
I touched on this briefly. Prosecutors are allowed to lie, and cops are allowed to lie, and that's not true for all legal systems, but it is true for ours. So they can lie to you, and they can try to elicit, some incriminating information from you, and they don't care. It's like that's a win for them. So that's why you don't talk to the cops. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Yeah, they don't have that many rules. Like, they have to read you your rights. They are not allowed to promise you anything. So they're not allowed to say, like, if you cooperate, then I'll recommend that you don't get,
And if they do promise you anything, say I need it in writing and I need it signed by, like, the DA.
Yeah. And if you say, I don't want to talk to you, I'd like to talk to a lawyer, they can't keep asking you questions. Like, they have to basically leave the room at that point unless you change your mind and ask them to come back.
You can
I
always
can't think of
incriminate
any other rules.
You can always willingly incriminate yourself, but
you
can't
talk your way out of an arrest, but you can talk your way into one.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, are we going to make this a short episode? Because
I've got like 3 kids banging on my door right now, so I got to get going.
Is there anything else y'all wanna talk about?
For the record, Nick Prime has kids of his own. He is not Rosenbaum.
I like these.
He looks like him. Yeah, but he faked his own.
Hold on. I am like 3 feet taller than Rosenbaum. Okay.
Who isn't?
Yeah. That's not saying much right now.
The manlet defense didn't work.
Just put your gun down and fought him.
Just pick him up by the back of his shirt and let him run at you.
Well, according to Kyle, he was at least 6 feet tall. Did y'all hear about that?
Yeah, his lawyer said when it was happening, he had the impression that he was being charged by someone 6 foot 250, which is reasonable because, like, you're looking back, you're just glancing, you're not gathering enough information. You just know that someone's charging.
He was short, but he was stocky.
Yeah, he was 5'3", but like 200 pounds, something like
150 according to the prosecution.
It was 150. Yeah, like you wouldn't want to get tackled by that.
No. All right. Well, anyway, not guilty. Fantastic. Not guilty. We're all super stoked. It's been great. So hey,
I win.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming.
We
on
win.
And
Chris
talking
loses.
to us, dude.
We all win.
Yeah, I lost, but I've never been so happy to be wrong about this. I tell you, I'm super happy. So do y'all want to what's the next trial we should be watching? Just to wrap.
I'm curious about Aubrey, but
let's talk offline.
If you guys will have me again.
All right, well, of course. Anytime, man. All right. And
there can only be one.